Leeds, Leeds, Leeds. What is happening? Welcome to Series 6 of Working Hours, an oral history podcast about a place called Leeds, a time called now, and an activity called work. Working Hours aims to record 1,000 loiners, that's people from Leeds, over the course of this, the most important decade in the history of the human species, and ask them about what they do all day and hear how they feel about it. My name is Simon, and this is all my fault. My mission here is to try to map out what my city, Leeds, a city that has declared a climate emergency, did during humanity's biggest emergency. On Working Hours, we hear how loiners have, are, and will be coping with our multiple and expanding crises during their day-to-day working hours. Can we turn things around? We'll find out. To tell this story, I need loiners like you, dear listener. I need people in Leeds or people from Leeds to come on this podcast and tell me about what they do and let me record how this decade affects us. These are long-form interviews meant to challenge the short attention span content economy. That means they aren't always easy listening, but in my view, they are all worth listening to. They all tell us something about our guest, our city, and our time, not to mention something of what it's like to do that job and how someone got into that job. You're helping this project right now by being a listener, and I'd love for you to consider becoming a guest or a supporter of this project. Thank you for listening to this episode. What did you want to be when you grew up?
Growing up, I had a passion for sport, and I wanted to have some sort of a career in sport. The obvious one for most young boys is football, and I was passionate about football, but running as well. But in neither of those did I get to a level that could have sustained a career. So I went into more of a business and admin based career. But it's ironic that a huge amount of what I do now as a lawyer is involved in sport. So it's really quite nice to be involved in that, albeit not as a sports person, as a player, as an athlete, but certainly very closely connected to it through the advice that I do. So I've kind of achieved the objective, should I say, in an indirect way, which is nice.
Do you still play any sports as well? Are you part of a team or anything?
No, until recently I did play football, but I decided that it's probably about time now. When you play on a Wednesday night and you can only walk properly the following Wednesday before you go again, it's time to have a quiet word with yourself. So I do run, I work out, I go to the gym, do various different exercises. I did a PT qualification during lockdown, so I'm quite interested in it. Did it for my own interest. So yeah, try and just keep relatively in shape through that.
You're listening to Series 6, Episode 9, and to my guest, Neil Wilson. This is another Squadcast recorded on the 13th of March, 2025. Hello, listener. Neil Wilson is the managing partner at Chadwick Lawrence, a leading West Yorkshire-based law firm recognised for its progressive approach and commitment to employee wellbeing. Neil's journey into law began after completing his law degree, LBB, in 1996 and qualifying as a solicitor in 1998. Unlike many solicitors, Neil did not go straight down the legal route after school, opting instead to move to Germany to learn the language and study European business studies. He then moved to a government managerial position for 14 years before changing careers to law, aged 33, having studied his law degree and postgraduate diploma part-time on evenings and weekends. Since becoming managing partner in 2014, Neil has overseen 210 employees from 8 offices across West Yorkshire, with an anticipated turnover of 16.2 million in 2024-25. Specialising in sports and employment law, he has established himself as a trusted advisor to many of the region's top organisations and sports clubs, including Leeds Rhinos and Huddersfield Town Football Club. Right, let's do this. Episode 164 of Working Hours with Neil Wilson. So I'm going to jump straight into what are you doing now? You've obviously kind of alluded to it already. I mean, you mentioned law. So What are you doing now?
So now I'm a solicitor, and I'm the managing partner of Chadwick Lawrence Solicitors. We are a broad-based firm offering a wide range of legal services. Offices are in and around West Yorkshire, but the service we offer goes nationwide. My role is predominantly now to manage and run the business. I don't do as much legal work as I used to do, but I'm still very well connected to various sports organisations that we act for and sponsor and work in conjunction with, and do get involved in issues that arise within those organisations fairly routinely. I'm also the legal director for Leeds Rhinos as a non-exec director on their board. That's an interesting part of what I do. But most of the day-to-day involvement is about joining up the various different divisions of the business, of which there are many. We have quite a large number of sites, 9 sites, so making all that gel together as well, making sure we've got a healthy brand out there, making sure we deliver great service, and proud of the fact that last year we were recognised by the Sunday Times as one of the top 500 best places to work in the UK. Wow. Something we're proud of. So yeah, try and make all that work in one way or another.
So next question is, how did you get into it? Was it just a matter of, I mean, was it a fairly straight line? Was it, school, university, law degree, getting the experience, becoming a solicitor, working your way up, or was it a roundabout way?
I'd say probably completely the opposite to the straight line. So I joke that I invented the gap year. I had a passion to learn to speak German when I was doing my A-levels, and I didn't want to go to university. So I arranged a job on the German-Austrian border in a hotel where I would hopefully go and work and learn the language very quickly. Parents and teachers taught me out of that because there was a new course that had come into play, European Business Studies. So they persuaded me to take that on, which I did, which meant that I, in amongst studying various different aspects of business, including law, I also got to spend quite a bit of time in Germany and living and studying in Germany and studying their equivalent of legal systems and economics and psychology and the like. But the main ambition was to learn to speak German, and I learned to do that fluently in the first year that I went there. So I'd achieved my objective, and I didn't really want to stay around at university. So I pulled out of that, came back, got myself a job working for the government, got a promotion, and with that promotion, I was required to advise people on various statutes and the application of various regulations. I took to it and I liked it. So I decided to study law as a hobby. I studied law evenings and weekends, part-time, still kept my full-time job. And in the second year of that, I realised that I had a bit of a forte for it and I really liked it. So I then looked into the career path, decided that it would be good to do that. So finished the degree, did my postgraduate diploma part-time, and then left what was a very good job to become a trainee solicitor aged 33 and a half. And I started that career path with Chadwick Lawrence as a trainee, qualified in 2000, and then progressed from there and took this role on as managing partner in 2014.
Yeah, because it's a profession where once you qualify, well, you're kind of qualified but not qualified, aren't you? You have to do a certain amount of time before you're actually fully qualified, like working time before you're fully qualified.
Yeah, you do a 2-year training contract, and they're not easy to find. But I managed to achieve that with Chadwick Lawrence. And then once you've done that, you do qualify, and then obviously there's an argument that that's when you really start to learn, because you're not necessarily left to your own devices, but you've got to think on your feet a little bit more. You've less supervision,
more liability as well, haven't you?
Absolutely, yeah. You grow into it, and I I've enjoyed every minute of it and still do.
So what are the things that really appealed to you about it? Was it, the knowledge and the detail and the intricacies, or was it just the sort of how you could help people? Like, what were the things that drew you in?
I think one thing that it does teach you to be very analytical and give you the ability to address what might be a huge problem, all manner of factors feeding into this huge problem. But one way or another, you're able to carve a straight line through it and find a solution to it. And I don't think you realise that you are doing that until you actually really start to do it. So you're told that as part of the background that you might do, research that you might do as you're looking into it, but you don't actually see that happening. And I do think that is one of the things that I do really like about it. So I have a number of fairly high-profile sporting clients who are used to getting their own way and doing what they like. And I get on remarkably well with them. Don't take that the wrong way. But they will present you with some humongous issues, which perhaps other business people wouldn't have done because they'd have picked the phone up earlier and asked you to guide them so you didn't actually get into the problem. And people have said to me, that must really frustrate you. My answer is actually no, it excites me because it's the bit that I like. So solving, the more complex the problem, the more I get out of dealing with it and enjoy that. So, and that is helping people. That's not just necessarily high profile people. You get significant problems for pretty much anybody in life. And you do get real satisfaction out of getting a result for somebody who might have been, shall we say, picked on, bullied, taken advantage of. Because the background to the sports law work that I do is me having been an employment lawyer for many years. So there are a lot of complex scenarios that me and my team deal with on behalf of businesses on the one hand and private individuals as employees on the other. So the satisfaction comes from, on the one hand, resolving those difficult things. Then on the other hand as well, working with businesses to persuade them that employment law is not a noose around their neck. In actual fact, if they work with us and they understand it, it can be a benefit to the business. They can use it to their advantage and their employees benefit as well. So yeah, but predominantly the complex ones are the good ones and the enjoyable ones when you actually get an outcome to them.
Yeah, but then there's a pleasure in, like you say, in the complexity anyway of like, so much to deal with, and I guess that brings variety a lot of times as well, because you can draw on previous experiences, but I would imagine that it's never really the same problem. There's probably like ones that come up that you're kind of like, all right, and that's sort of bread and butter work, but most of the time it'll be like everything's a little bit different. Is that kind of the way it goes?
Absolutely, and that applies particularly in the employment law field, but it certainly applies in the sporting field because it's not always necessarily just about the problem. It's also about the person that you are dealing with, and the problem can be a complex one. But in the sporting field, you are typically dealing with people who are driven. They are winners. They have a mindset of the outcome that they want to achieve, and that might not be realistic. So, and it might not be possible. So a lot of that is winning and gaining their trust, so that they will accept you saying to them, "You are not going to get this, but you may get that," and that's what we need to aim for, and work together then to achieve the best outcome. So that's not necessarily about the legal problem. That's about managing the individual, the customer, and the very sort of nuances that go with that, and that can be very, very challenging. But equally as well, when you break down that barrier, then you gain that trust of that individual, and you work together to get the best possible outcome. That's a great place to be. It's a nice thing to do. And in the sporting field, it tends to be one area where what you achieve is recognised, and it does breed loyalty. The people of that ilk will come back to you and will refer other people to you, and help you grow your network and that line of the business. So it's rewarding.
So I guess the real wins are, if you take on a client and you don't necessarily get them what they want, but you've built enough trust that you've kind of told them all the way through that journey, and then they come back to you anyway because they're like, yes, we the trust is there. Or is it more like you've got to win and then they come back?
No, I think it's the former. The important thing is at the very outset, particularly if it's a disputed matter. A lot of our things are transactional and there's no dispute, and you just buying and selling a property or a business or whatever, and you get the best possible deal. But they're not necessarily what we would say they're contentious. The contentious ones are the ones where there is a real challenge, and for me that's about setting the parameters at the very start and me explaining to you that this process is going to evolve. So what I'm sat here telling you now, based on what you've told me, I will advise you that this is the likely outcome. But bear in mind, once I start this case, I'm going to engage with the other side, and they're likely going to tell me something completely different. That might mean that I have a different opinion based on what they say. What we've then got to do is look at the evidence that backs up what we say and what they say to form a view on what the outcome of the case might be. And whenever you take on a case that goes all the way through the tribunal or the court system and you go to a hearing, you are taking a risk. You are taking a risk that your client's going to say what they said they're going to say, that their evidence holds and is not torn apart by the other side, which is potentially possible. And you've also got to take on account whoever's hearing that case on the day, because they all have different takes and viewpoints, and some will be more risky than others. So as long as we are clear every step of the way that this is evolving and this might change, and you understand that, then I can keep pace with what does change, and I can keep you informed, and I can manage your expectations by fine-tuning what the range of outcomes are likely to be, and they can be massively different to where we started out. So that's the challenge in making sure that you know all the while what you're committing to, what you're effectively paying for, and what the potential result could be.
Yeah. I've got one other question in this area before we move on to the main questions. So I'm thinking back to, the sort of initial job working in Germany. That's more of a kind of, it sounded more of a frontline job. Was it a kind of customer? So what I'm getting towards here is that I think that some of that, it's a customer service kind of role, but it's not the kind of customer service where you're just saying, yes, we're going to give you everything you want. It's that managing the expectations and guiding them through the process, and that like being as real and honest and, realistic about what you can do and what's going on as possible. And so is that, I guess what I'm trying to get towards is like, how did you develop those skills? Did that come from, the law experience and doing that side of things, or was that skills you've brought from elsewhere into this profession?
So I did bring skills with me, because at the age that I changed careers, obviously I built up a fairly wide skill set of, and that was mainly managerially, looking after a part of the business that was nationwide, looking after individuals that were based all over the country that I had to marshal and manage. I undertook a lot of training in that time, and I dealt with the work that I handled was quite contentious. So I suppose that did give me something of a grounding for when I transferred into the law. I also, in my early years, my first 2 or 3 years after qualifying, did a lot of matrimonial law. Not something I necessarily wanted to do long term, but that is a real eye opener, and it is a really challenging and emotional area of the law. And I think you grow up, I was grown up anyway, but you grow up legally quickly when you're confronted with the challenging situations of a marriage breakdown, finances being affected by it, crucially children being affected by it. and you've got to get it right. And I think I learned in there, certainly on the financial side of those disputes, there are no winners. Because if you come to me and I manage your divorce and I manage your finances, you are not going to walk away with more money than you came to me with. You're lucky if you get 50% of it, and you might even get less. So that needs to be managed very carefully. And then the emotions that run with regard to children disputes are just off the scale.
Yeah.
And you can be dealing with ordinarily the most experienced, intellectual and balanced people, but that goes out of the window when they are fighting for the right to see their kids. So I think that was a really good grounding for me. That meant going to court a lot, taking clients to court a lot, preparing them for what the outcomes might be, dealing with scenarios where we didn't necessarily get the outcome that we wanted. So I think that was a good grounding. But then, generally speaking, it comes with experience. You get better at it by reviewing the work that you've done, the outcomes that you've achieved, the satisfaction or not of the client, and reviewing those things and thinking, right, well, next time maybe if I'm faced with a case similar to this, I perhaps need to make some changes in how I do this or how I do that. So it's a constantly evolving platform. And as I say, if I compare that then to the sporting arena, you've got very challenging clients who are winners, and they expect to win every time. So managing that is a new dynamic to perhaps managing the challenge of the marriage breakdown. But all those skills in some way or another go into the pot.
Yeah. So I'm going to jump into COVID.
Yep.
I'm guessing you're at the same place that you're at now.
Yeah.
Same firm. So I generally want to look at here the experience of going into the lockdown and then coming out the other side. What changed? What, if anything, changed for you? So sort of going forward work-wise. In most cases, it's just kind of, well, we do a lot more work online now, and video calls and so on. And the other thing for people going into it, it's like either you had all the work, you're just ringing everyone and going, I don't know what's going on, and they're ringing you, or it stayed the same, or it dropped off a cliff. So what was the experience like for you?
Well, it was really challenging because nobody had a clue what was going to happen next. And some things that spring to mind are, firstly, I remember, and I've still got the note to this day, listening to Rishi Sunak announcing the various support mechanisms that would be put in place, doing a rough and ready calculation as to how that might affect Chadwick Lawrence solicitors, sharing that with my board colleagues and saying, look, if we get it right, we'll get through this. I also remember taking several calls from very successful people I've acted for a lot of years who were running their own businesses in tears, frightened to death that was going to be the end, and trying to reassure them that everybody is in the same boat and there are support mechanisms coming, just sit tight and wait for it. And then having those subsequent conversations where they were reassured. So going into it, nobody had a clue what was going to happen. But I was relatively confident or reassured by the measures that were going to be put in place to help businesses get through it. I think one of the challenges that I faced as managing partner was speaking to my head of IT, and that was about sending everybody home and then being able to work remotely. And we had a conversation where he said to me, look, Neil, this is all set up. It's all ready to roll and work. But we only ever envisaged that we'd have maybe 20, 30 people at a time using this.
Yeah.
If we've over 200, I have no clue what's going to happen. And I said, well, Dan, it can go one of two ways, can't it? And I remember him and his team timetabling people late into the night for a few days so they could hook up online, get them set up. And to their credit, it worked absolutely seamlessly, arguably better than the on-site functionality that we'd previously had. So that was a worry, but reassured that the tech team had it in hand. So then we got into the into the thick of it. We had regular meetings about how we were going to manage remote working, ensure people were looked after from a health and wellness perspective,
Mm-hmm.
put various initiatives in place. So one early initiative that we actually relaunched in January of last year is we agreed to give everybody 2 hours of wellness time.
Mm.
So we wanted to get them away from the screen, get them away from the desk, get them outside, go for a walk, sit down, read a book, have a coffee or whatever. Bear in mind they couldn't do things together, so
Mm-hmm.
it was very much just do something that's good for you, that makes you feel a little bit better, instead of staring at this screen sort of 7, 8, 9, 10 hours a day.
Mm.
And then we introduced various things of that ilk as we went through COVID, and as some of the measures were relaxed and people could move about more. I think the effect that it's had, certainly on me and people that I engage with, is that there are still people, and I include myself in this a little bit, looking at what the structure of their life is like now as
Mm.
compared to what it was like before.
Mm-hmm.
Because pre-COVID, I'd be in the office between 7:30 every morning. I'd get home most nights between 6 and 7. I might get a break in between to go for a run or nip to the gym, but predominantly it was that long day every
Mm.
single day. We've all taken a step back now and realised that we don't all have to travel at rush hour.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily have to go in every day. We've
Yeah.
maintained the hybrid working arrangement at Chadwick Lawrence, so we don't expect everybody to go in every day.
Yeah.
And one of the
Do you
things,
do it as a minimum? Do you do like everyone does 2-3 days minimum, or is
no,
it just okay?
no, a lot of firms have done that. We've said that we will avoid, as far as we're able to, we'll avoid mandating that,
Yeah.
because as it stands, it's working and it's working well.
Yeah.
I think what a lot of firms have done in mandating that is they've seen one or two problems and therefore fixed it
Mm.
by impacting everybody by mandating 2 or 3 days.
Mm.
My view would be, we'll just manage those isolated problems, and you can maintain the flexibility. Very different arguments, and I can see why some businesses want that settled pattern.
Yeah.
Um, but it works okay for us. The commute is a big time saver,
Yeah.
and I've said to people is, if your commute there and back was 2, 3, 4 hours,
Yeah.
then be kind to yourself. Don't think that you're just going to throw all that back into Chadwick Lawrence and work.
Yeah.
At the time, give yourself some of that time. And we hear some great stories of how that is working very well for people. They feel so much better about having the flexibility. They don't have to pay the dog walker 5 days a week. It's only two
Yeah.
or 3 days, and they can enjoy doing it themselves. So yeah, it's worked well for us. It is a different way of working. It does require more discipline from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
But I personally believe that we have a better working pattern now, a
Mm-hmm.
better balance between what we do at work and what we do at home,
Mm-hmm.
and the opportunity just to, inject into a day. Well, if that's the only appointment you can get in the middle of the day, go and do it, because you can make time up some other time. We've got a lot of trust in the business. We trust people not to take advantage.
Mm.
And as I say, we don't get many issues at all with it. So for me, it's a good thing. But I still struggle a little bit with the fact that I don't have that structure. And I think that structure means that I lose a little bit of discipline from time to time. So I'm still working on that, but overall, I think it's been a benefit.
I mean, it's an industry where it'll ebb and flow like anything, but it's an industry where you are going to do a lot of hours at times, and there's an expectation to do a lot of hours as well. How did you fare yourself through the actual lockdown with the whole wellness and the work separation thing? Were you able to kind of, I mean, obviously part of your routine's immediately taken away because the sporting exercise stuff is gone, other than going for a walk or a run around the block kind of thing.
Yeah.
Was that difficult, or were you quite good at, were you able to sort of maintain the discipline, or did you end up did your hours start slipping and you were doing, really excessively long weeks? Like, how did you fare?
managed well. I think I maybe had a bit of a leg up in as much as I've not had my own office or desk at Chadwick Lawrence for many years. My last actual office was based in Dock Street in Leeds, and I was moving about so much around the business, it just seemed to be a waste. We renovated the Leeds office and created an area called the Dock. We're on Dock Street, and it was an open plan area. So I tended to gravitate towards that when I was there, and then move around the various offices. So working on the move was and working on my own and having to just pitch up somewhere and plug in and be able to work was something that I was au fait with. So it didn't come as much of a shock because I'd studied at home and I'd studied evenings and weekends. I already knew that you have to have some barriers. So I properly set up the bedroom that I had a desk in became an office, a gym, a hit session studio, a yoga studio for my wife, a dance studio for my wife. And so it was multifunctional, but I was very much disciplined into saying, okay, at 5 or 6 o'clock, this is getting switched off. The door's going to get shut, and I'm not going in there unless I'm going to go in to do some training or my wife's going to use it for something else. I think where colleagues struggled is if they either didn't have or weren't prepared to create that partition. So they're working on the kitchen table. The PC never gets switched off. They can't leave it alone even if they're having a meal. And there was one particular colleague who lived with his wife in a huge house, with plenty of space, and he just used to put his PC on a pile of books on the kitchen island. And I said, you're a fool. Why don't you use one of the other rooms, get yourself out of the way, get yourself switched off. Don't be looking at the PC every time it pings and this, that, and the other. Now, some people couldn't do that. They didn't have that luxury. Some of our younger end were having to work in their bedrooms, but nevertheless, I think they were probably more disciplined than some of the more mature people at the business. So I think in having that discipline, and it's a discipline at switching emails off on evenings and weekend is a discipline I've had in place for years pre-COVID. And they were at a certain time on an evening, usually 6 o'clock-ish, I turn my email account off. I do the same on a Friday, and I don't turn it back on until Monday morning. I've got my phone if I'm needed. I will pick up calls. So that structure and discipline was already there, and in part it's there to try and persuade other people to do it. And we've recently formally adopted a right to switch off policy within the firm, so that it just gives people that peace of mind that I may email you late at night, but I'm not expecting you to respond to that. I'm not expecting you to pick it up. And in order for that not to interrupt you, I'm encouraging you to switch off those emails so you don't even see it until the following morning. Similarly with phone calls and the like, we appreciate from time to time we may have to work later. There'll be deals that have to be concluded that might run into the night. That's in the policy. We're clear about that with colleagues. They accept that and take it on board, and it seems to work fine. So yeah.
Yeah, people need to know where they stand, and it's that thing of, especially in a competitive field like law, it's like, look, you're not going to get an edge over someone by doing this, so we don't all have to keep our phones on, be working all the time. It's like you do have to switch off and rest. That is an important part of your role as well as your life. Absolutely. And we have a very firm commitment to health and wellness at Chadwick Lawrence. So we reset that to our wellness time. People use it for all manner of different things. We've invested in all manner of learning and development around encouraging people to be disciplined around their health and wellness, mental, physical, dietary. We ran a session firm-wide over probably the last 6-7 months, where we brought Jamie Peacock in, who's a former Leeds Rhino, who does motivational and personal management training, and asked Jamie to run sessions, which we invited all of the business to. And that was all about taking ownership and control of you as a person, being disciplined with your time,
not just because the business benefits, but because you personally benefit as well. Those sessions went extremely well, and we're continually looking at ways to enhance that. Really, I want to create an environment where people are equipped for what happens next in life, and it doesn't just catch them out by chance. So they're looking ahead and thinking, I need to find some time in my busy day or week because in 6 months' time, I'm buying my own house, for example. I'll have more commitments, or we're getting married, or we're having a family, and try and get to that place where instead of people burning out, anxiety, panic attacks, depression, and therefore you've got to fix them, and you give them the whole raft of tools to come back from that. Why don't you share those tools with them in advance so that they avoid getting into that situation in the first place? And build into that, part of that is our Chadwick Lawrence community, acknowledging that there's a huge amount of experience of all manner of different life situations that exist within our cohort. Mm-hmm. And a lot of those people are prepared to share that experience to help other people that might be about to go through what might be a challenging situation. That might be elderly care, elderly relative care. It might be somebody who's poorly and managing a challenging health condition. Just trying to get that experience shared with the team such that they can. It's not wrong to put your hand up and say, this is going to start happening to me over the course of the next few months. Has anybody got any guidance on it? And we have a huge, with different groups in the business. We have a dementia friendly group who meet. We have a champion who trains our people to be dementia friendly and trains other organisations. They created a knit and natter group who were knitting twiddle muffs for people in residential care, and then sent a whole raft of, as you'll be familiar with, gift drives for children's hospitals and things at Christmas. Well, they have one for dementia residents and push those gifts out to various care homes. And some of them are using that as their wellness time and finding it really quite enjoyable. We have a menopause group as well that get together and just talk openly about their challenges and help each other. We have an emerging, not sure what I'm going to call it yet, but an emerging men's health group where we're going to try and just do one or two things that are pointed at that age-old dilemma of the fact that blokes don't talk enough. So not quite sure what that looks like yet. I've got a group of people of different ages in the business meeting in a few weeks' time to just embrace that and say, look, what if anything can we do?
Have you seen this? I'm going to interject here, but just to ask you about it, because they've got this thing. I've spoken to them, but I've not been along yet. And it's called the Men's Pie Club, which to me just sounds great. It's just go and make pies. They're in the market, and then they're in a bunch of other places around Leeds. Have you heard of that yet?
I've not heard of it, no. But it's interesting that you've told me about it, because I'm now going to look into it. And when I meet with my colleagues, there's 5 or 6 of us have said we're going to sit in a room for a couple of hours and just come up with some ideas as to what we might do. And we've got to get it right, because I don't think, if I were to create an environment where people could come and bare their soul, I don't think they would at work, because they might feel as though they're basically putting their job or their progression at risk. It wouldn't be, but I could understand they would feel that. So I think what we need to do might need to be a little bit of a lighter touch. So that interests me. Yeah, I'll have a look at that. Thank you.
Yeah, I think naturally blokes being put together to talk about their feelings or whatever is kind of, why? Why do you want to know this? But if you put them in a context where they're doing stuff that, like, it can come out a bit easier. I think it needs some coaxing, obviously, but yeah,
it's that safe space, isn't it? And that there was the campaign to on the back of the radio presenter taking his own life to say, "Are you okay?" To ask twice, "Are you really okay?" And that's great and it's commendable, and a lot of people were doing it. But in my experience, if you're not okay, I might ask you 10, 15, 20 times, you're not going to tell me. But you might do, as you've just said, if we create the right environment where small amount of information might just be released, then you've got the opportunity there to try and open that up. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what we do there. Looking forward to that.
So I'm going to move us into social media, and feel free. I mean, because some of that is, I would imagine, part of your CSR kind of work, but
Yeah.
I would imagine there's other parts to it. And I'm also guessing, I'm assuming, so correct me if I'm wrong, that a lot of that connects with how you do your social media, because I'm imagining, especially with the sports world. So I'm thinking like Leeds Rhinos are always doing
Mm,
things,
mm,
and are involved with various charity events. I know lots of other Leeds sporting brands and personalities and stuff do as
mm.
well. So is that kind of how your social media is, I guess, oriented, or is it really wide? And the other thing is like, how much social media do you have to do for your role? Because we're all kind of more and more drawn into it. So that's not just necessarily about posting, whatever on whichever
Yeah.
channel, but also if you actually engage or get business via social media channel.
Yeah. So there's a wide range really. The CSR elements, undoubtedly we push out a lot on social media. I am as well a trustee of the Leeds Rhinos has a charitable foundation, and I'm a trustee of that. I've been for quite a number of years, so engage with that quite a lot when they're putting their news stories out. We support that. We sponsor the physical disability rugby league team and the learning disability rugby league team. So just as an absolute prime example, we pushed a story out as a PR piece only last week. Went to take a photo up at Headingley with some of the PDRL players, one of which is one of our own colleagues, and that goes out as a generic piece of PR, but it goes out on social channels.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a mix there because one part of it is about sponsoring the Rhinos and being their legal partner. The other is about supporting physical disability and learning disability rugby league teams. We put a lot of the dementia things out on social media, the gift drive at Christmas. We do things for homeless at Christmas. We do various runs. So, for example, this weekend we have over 40 of our people running in the Wakefield Hospice 10K.
Mm.
So what we do as a business is we fund their entry and get them to run as a group, and that supports the charity, but also helps with bringing out people together. We encourage them to put that all over social media, but then equally from a business perspective as well, we do encourage our teams to post and repost, and to comment and to contribute. I check my channels every single day. I don't take long over it. I don't put a huge amount of content out, probably should do more, but I am in there liking and reposting and commenting. I do keep league tables because I'm challenging people at a senior level to do it, and I won't name and shame those that just don't listen to me. But we get a lot of engagement throughout the business from colleagues to do that, and it works very well. Does it generate business? Absolutely, it does.
Mm.
Sometimes really obviously, because you'll get somebody messaging you on LinkedIn, for example, as a platform, not been in touch for ages, but need to sort out a will. Can you put me in touch with somebody? And we get the same from business connections. If you're there, they'll find you. Sometimes gravitate to that more so than maybe looking at the website. Perhaps they've forgot the name of the firm or whatever, or they just use that as their go-to sort of connection. And so it's something that we encourage, that we embrace. It is valuable, and we'll continue doing it. We've got to learn to look at other platforms as well. So we were encouraged to use TikTok a few months ago, and I was a little bit like that with it. We probably will do at some point, but
Have
not
you had a go on it then? Have you had a go?
No. I was shown a few pieces on it that there was a suggestion we ought to do something similar to.
Yeah.
It didn't feel right.
You got to go where people are, though. That's the thing. And I feel like I've got to go. Like, I think there's still a massive audience on Snapchat, and it's like, but then, I feel like you hit a ceiling as well with sort of the traditional channels like Twitter and Facebook.
And that's absolutely the advice that we've been given. And I think probably, so we've not said no to it. I just felt as though what I was being directed towards didn't seem right for us or for our business.
But then Facebook wouldn't have years ago, would it? I mean, when it first came out, you're like, well, why would we be on that?
Yeah. So so you're right. We've got to take that challenge on. We've got to embrace these things, and we will. I think I probably just needed a bit more thinking time on what is our identity if we're going to do that, because I don't like the ones that you've shown me.
Yeah.
So we'll get there, because there is already a drive from the younger end of our business for us to do those things more, and we listen to them.
Yeah.
And I had a senior team conference in November where I set some workshops up for them to tell me where they believe we should be taking the business.
Mm-hmm.
And we're now in the planning phase of that. But then I replicated that same workshop. We have a group called Grow, and they are all our trainees of different descriptions, doing different courses that we are helping to fund to develop their career. So they're not necessarily just trainee solicitors. They might be undertaking a SILEX or an apprenticeship. So I ran the exact same workshop with them and got some really encouraging suggestions and feedback from them as well. And we are now in the process, in fact, next week, of weighing all of those up and deciding which ones we will take forward. And there'll be a mix of them. So, yeah.
Final quick question on this. Have you ever come across the YouTuber Legal Eagle?
That rings a vague bell.
Yeah,
but it's a vague bell.
It wouldn't surprise me, because I mean, that's automatically what I think of when I think of, law and social media, his channel. But
I need to look at that as well then.
So I'm going to move us on to Brexit. Obviously, well, for some people, this is kind of tied in with COVID because it was happening at the same time. From your perspective, I would imagine not so much, because you work in law, you need to be on top of it. You need to, you'll have had to be ahead of it as much as you could be. Did it change anything for you work-wise? I mean, I would imagine that all your clients remained in England. It didn't really change the makeup of them massively. So, was there any change in work for you work-wise?
Yeah, Brexit, not a huge difference in terms of impact on our business directly. We don't do very much, if any, work beyond the UK. So not a huge difference to us directly. Certainly for our client base, it did make a difference. They saw quite a number of changes and concerns around pricing and different tariffs that they were subjected to, but also supply chain issues. So the consequence of them being involved in that type of thing did mean that the commercial arm, our business services side of our business, was involved in advising and redrafting terms and conditions and contractual things and the like. But that probably is the full extent, really, of how that impacted on us.
So I'm going to jump straight onto climate change. I mean, obviously, you have people, you've gone to a hybrid model, so there's less people on the road, less people commuting and so on. I would also imagine that's made your paper bill even smaller, hopefully. So climate change, in terms of your work, has it changed anything for you? Does it affect anything? Is it something that kind of comes up in your work, or is that, it's a further down the line or outside issue?
Yeah, no, I mean, we have an obligation to do our bit, and we've got some soft targets to improve our carbon footprint. So you mentioned the hybrid working. Certainly there has been an impact, a positive impact on our use of consumables in and around that. So paper, toner are examples, postage, doing things electronically obviously takes things off the roads, off the trains. Travel, we're not traveling as much. So there's an improvement there. power internally.
Meeting clients less as well, having to meet clients in person less often as well now, aren't you?
Absolutely. And we have looked back and measured what we were expending pre-COVID to not necessarily what we were expending during COVID, because that was a one-off. But now, and there are undoubtedly improvements on what we can contribute. We've looked at lighting and moved to LED in some of our premises. We've plans to go further with power saving measures on standby of various printers and PCs and things that are switched on that don't need to be switched on. One of the things that have frustrated me has been our commitment to recycling, and we've been a bit slow off the mark with that, but that will change effective 1st of April, and with various measures in place to improve our performance there. So we can do our bit. I don't think it has a massive impact as compared, as I say, to maybe some more sort of industrialized businesses. But if every business of our type does their bit, then that surely is gonna lead to an improvement.
So, quick final question on this. So, can you recall back to sort of 2 years ago when we hit 39 degrees in Leeds?
Yeah.
Were you working at home or in the office, or did everyone work at home? Or because I get the feeling that this year is going to be a bit like 22. It feels quite warm to me already. I mean, it's cold, but it's warmer than it should be as well.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like, so if we're getting more of those days, how does that impact anything? Like, have you seen? I'll let you answer the question. How does it impact things, if at all?
I don't see that there's a massive, immediate, or obvious impact. If you're in the office, you're in the office. I've not seen. So conversely, for example, when we used to get the bad weather in the winter, and we were all office based, and we'd send people home, I've not seen a scenario where we've said it's too hot to be in the office, so go home, because it's probably hotter at home. Leeds is a good example, because that is the hottest office that we've got, and it really does get overbearing. But the flexibility exists to do that, so we'll take some measures to try and make it more comfortable. We have a relatively relaxed dress code. We have a semi-smart dress code Monday to Friday, a dress down code on a Friday. But I specifically remember those few days in Leeds, and the partner in charge said, "Look, if you want to come in and be even more relaxed," and I don't agree to shorts and flip flops, but on those days we didn't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
And also, if it really is that overbearing and you'd rather be at home, go home and work from home.
Yeah.
So I do think that we probably, most of our sites, I say most of our sites, several of our sites don't have air conditioning. There isn't a cooling system in there. Several of them do. Do people gravitate towards those sites when it's hot? I don't think they do yet. I don't think it's consistent enough. But if we get to a point where we're seeing longer blocks of that, then our flexibility at the moment will get us through that. Whether we have to make changes in the medium term, we'll wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was going to say, is like you have that flexibility and you have that ability to reach your staff and discuss with staff, and really they're all around, they're all kind of tuned in. I guess you don't have the kind of extreme segmentation and silo working that other sectors or industries might have.
Yeah.
You're much more cohesive around. I mean, there'll be people specialized in, and especially, different areas that work discreetly, but generally you're all coming and you singing from the same song sheet, I guess.
Yeah.
Best way to put it.
Yeah, that's accurate. Yeah.
So I'm going to go on to the final two questions. So I'm going to start with the change question. And given that I've just prefaced that with what I've just said, I would imagine that anything you can change, anything you want to change, you kind of do. So this might be a difficult question for you, but maybe there are kind of fantasy variations that you want to throw in here, but you can be pragmatic. You can use this question how you want. So if you could change any three things about your work, what would you change?
Okay. So the first one would be instant success for our health and wellness commitment. Okay.
Okay.
So this is something that's evolving, it's growing, it's going really well. We've loads of initiatives to implement, and and that will continue. But if I could wake up tomorrow and that be embedded much faster, so for example, what we need to do over the next 2 or 3 years, if that could be in situ tomorrow, I would be that would be a change I'd really like to do. So that's an impatience type of thing, but I'd like to see quicker results than are possible. But yeah, that would be my first thing. I think my second thing would be for us all to consciously make time to just laugh and enjoy what we do a little bit more. We do it, but we all take ourselves far too seriously, far too much of the time. And it would be nice to just think, I go back to in the olden days when you had a tea break at 11 o'clock, you tended to go away from your desk and sit somewhere and have a cup of tea and have a natter and tell a few jokes and this, that, and the other. I know that probably goes on in amongst now, but I do sometimes think we get a bit too consumed with things. So, yeah, just not take ourselves too seriously and laugh and joke a little bit more than we currently do. And then the third wish would be we've got 9 sites across West Yorkshire. That's hard to manage. We've got 12 different legal disciplines, which are hard to manage. The disciplines probably will grow. It's probably not workable for me to think that we could shrink those 9 sites to one, but it would make my life a lot easier, more enjoyable, and I'm sure it would contribute positively to the rest of my colleagues. But that's not going to happen. So what I would like to do is create a more iconic site from within the sites that we've got, and make it more of a go-to site, and to create an environment whereby perhaps once a month or once every couple of months, we pick a day where everybody, as far as possible, gravitates towards being on that site on that day for a part of the day. We get really only a couple of opportunities a year at our summer event and at our festive period event to get our firm together. And when we do, it's brilliant. And I'd like us to do it more. So my head of IT, Dan Bell, wants to create an iconic site. It's something that I want to work with him to achieve. I don't know whether we will or not. But if we could do that and then get our colleagues to gravitate towards that more regularly so that we've got more of a one site option from time to time, then I would see that as success for Chadwick Lawrence.
That's a really good answer. Like all three of those are really, really good. So I'm going to do the UBI question. So you're familiar with UBI? I know you are. We had a brief discussion before we started. So if there was a universal basic income, this is going to be really hard for you to answer, I think. Would it affect your work at all? And as well, maybe clients, colleagues, and so on? I would imagine in your field, it's not going to be enough that you would see it kind of, oh, people are going to work less, or, I can't see the amounts really impacting the industry, but then maybe there are other changes that I haven't foreseen. Anyway, I will let you answer the question. Would it change anything for you?
Well, it would change things, but it does in part depend what it looks like, and the jury's out on what it looks like. So the one take on a universal basic income is that everybody right across the piece receives a certain level of income, whether they work or not.
Mm-hmm.
What I think would happen is the universal basic income would come in, but it would still, to a point, be means tested. So I'm not so sure it would operate right across the piece, even for those people that are in work, such that it supplements what they already earn. And there are different views on that. I think that if it was introduced, the impact it would have on businesses is it would have to be funded. We've all seen the furore around the recent increase in national insurance. If one of the views is that if we introduced this, it would strip out all the complexities of the existing benefit system. So it'd be significantly easier to administer. So we'd have huge admin savings there that could contribute to the pot to pay out the actual benefit. Would that be sufficient to fund it? I don't think it would. So the burden would have to fall somewhere, and it would fall on businesses. If businesses then say, well, the only way that I can deal with this indirect tax hike is to reduce my headcount, we've got a vicious circle, haven't we? Because we make X number of people redundant so that we can fund the additional cost. We then go on to draw the universal basic income. So it's a vicious circle. I also I looked at a prominent charity who'd written a report on this recently, and already the basic concept of it is becoming more complex, and so there is a view that, well, you get a certain level of basic income, but if you're this, you get that, and if you're that, you get that. Well, that taking us back to where we are. We're going full circle with it. My challenge with it would be to see how it ever could be implemented. And the only way that I believe that it ever could be implemented, subject to it being costed and worthwhile, is for it to be phased in and existing systems phased out. That would take 10 years, in my view, minimum. And then we have the conundrum of the stop-start to the political landscape. Typically happens, we bring a new government in, we put in various different policies, we embed this, we change it, we get midstream, and then somebody else comes in, pulls the bloody rug from it, and we go back to where we are. So there'd have to be some cross-party commitment to a long-term plan to deliver this, and it might have a fighting chance. The impact on business, though, if it was the case that it was paid to those that are not in work as opposed to those that are in work, would be funding it. And if it was paid to everybody, similarly, it would be funding it.
Yeah,
that'd be the challenge.
Yeah, I mean, I'd do it as I'd put the price on the carbon companies. I'd put it on private utilities and stuff. That's how I would do it. So it's like the kind of Alaskan thing where, because they get a kind of, from the oil drilling, they get payment every month in Alaska. And because you'd lose everybody if it was blanket across businesses paying for that. And it's like, there are windfall ways of doing it, but I would do it with something. I mean, this is all pie in the sky. I would do it with something that I would have an end to it. It wouldn't be an ongoing thing, maybe forever. It would be to try and break that link for people of, work and money. I think we're all going to have to work a bit less rather than more and more. But we need to spread that out as well, because it's not. I don't think it's good to work too much. I don't think it's good to work too little. Everything's got that kind of Goldilocks window, hasn't it? Of like, this is the right amount. So that's all my questions. So I normally have a bit at the end. If you've got any questions, if you want to talk about anything in particular, so you can do that. But before you jump into that, I'll just ask you, where can people find you? So you can give us your socials and then maybe have a little quick think if you want to talk about anything else.
So people can find me. They can find me on our website, which is www.chadwicklawrence.co.uk. They can find me on LinkedIn. They can email me, neilwilson@chadlaw.co.uk. And I'm happy to talk to anybody about what I do and what they might be interested in related to what I do or what Chadwick Lawrence does. I don't think I have anything more to ask, to be honest. I've tried to weave a few things in as we've gone along, and you've been kind enough to listen to that. So I'm really happy with what we've done. Thank you.
Thank you again to Neil for being my guest. Thanks, as always, to all my guests. And thank you to you, Leeds, for being my subject. You can find Neil at linkedin.com/in/sports and employment advisor, or linkedin.com/company/Chadwick-Lawrence-LLP. Before I do a waffle, I would like to thank Neil once more, and this time specifically just for giving this a go. There are others who have done this, and If I'd have had more resources at my disposal, I should have been telling you how the guests had been sourced. But, life is what happens while you're making other plans. I do source most of the guests for this show. There's no plan with it. It's very scattershot. I just send out as many emails as I can, when I can, and then I see who replies and who I can book in. So it's really nice when I do get guests like Neil who have contacted me instead. Well, to be factually accurate, it was through his team, but I still count it as I didn't have to send him a personal invite to get him to do this. If you'd like to contact me about this or anything else working hours related, then you can email me about the show at workinghourspod@western-studios.com. Okay, that's me. Remember, listener, no matter what you do, it's impossible for you to understand anything that your salary depends on you not understanding. So try to work for peace and try to plan with kindness. Raise your voice, but reduce your impact. Cheers, ears. Take care out there. And do be kind to each other, Leeds. Working Hours is produced, recorded, edited, created and published by Simon Treen for Western Studios Leeds Limited. The music was The Bees from Chopin's Etudes, which is in the public domain and was taken from museopen.org. Remember Western Studios Leeds Limited when you're ready to start making your content in West Yorkshire. Follow Western Studios Leeds on Facebook, facebook.com/Western_Studios_Leeds, and on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/company/Western-Studios. Bookmark western-studios.com so you can see the latest prices and use my contact page to drop me a message about your own podcast project or working hours at any time from anywhere. Maybe you want or need a podcast host, co-host or narrator for your podcast project. Maybe you just need another voice for one or more episodes of your show. Podcasts are so much more than gossip, book promotions and marketing for online courses. Podcasts and other audio content get your online brand out there. Want to make some fundraising case studies? Want to have an audiobook or video course? Want to share your learning, knowledge and expertise in your field? Want to learn, teach or raise awareness of something general or particular? Want to improve internal comms with messages your staff might actually engage with? Or do you just want to brighten up the world with some entertaining content? Then make a podcast. If you're making your podcast within West Yorkshire, then think about making it with western-studios.com. Whatever your podcast questions or needs, get in touch with Western Studios Leeds.